Hello, my friends. Welcome back to my channel, where we don't just tell stories, we uncover the truth. Today, you're about to experience one of the most shocking, most controversial, and most important stories of the 21st century. This is not just another documentary. This is the story that powerful people never wanted you to hear. This is the story of Jeffrey Epstein and the secrets hidden in the Epstein Files. Before we begin, I need you to do three things. First, turn off all distractions. This story demands your full attention. Second, grab your notebook. You'll learn advanced English vocabulary while discovering the truth. Third, remember, this is a real story, real victims, real crimes, real power. This story has everything: billionaires, private islands, presidents, princes, FBI investigations, mysterious circumstances, and thousands of pages of secret documents that were hidden from the public for decades. But most importantly, this is the story of brave survivors who refused to stay silent. Women who fought against the most powerful system in the world and won. Are you ready? Let's begin. Jeffrey Edward Epstein was born on January 20th, 1953, in Brooklyn, New York. He grew up in a middle-class Jewish family in the Coney Island neighborhood. His father, Seymour, was a groundskeeper for the New York City Parks Department. His mother, Paula, was a school aide. On the surface, young Jeffrey seemed brilliant. He had a gift for mathematics. He played the piano. He was charming and ambitious. But even in his youth, there were warning signs that something was different about Jeffrey Epstein. In 1971, Epstein attended Cooper Union College in Manhattan, but dropped out after just 2 years. Without a college degree, he began teaching mathematics and physics at the prestigious Dalton School in Manhattan in 1974. This is where the story gets interesting. At Dalton, Epstein met the families of some of New York's wealthiest and most powerful people. He was only 21 years old, teaching teenagers, but he was already networking with millionaires. One of the parents he impressed was Alan Ace Greenberg, the CEO of Bear Stearns, one of Wall Street's biggest investment banks. In 1976, Greenberg hired Epstein as a junior assistant. Epstein had no formal finance education, no business degree, no Wall Street experience, but he had something more valuable: charm and connections. Within 4 years, Epstein became a limited partner at Bear Stearns. He was making millions. But in 1981, he was suddenly asked to resign. The reasons remain unclear. Some say it was due to regulatory violations. Others suggest questionable business practices. In 1982, Epstein founded his own financial management firm called J. Epstein & Company. He claimed to only accept clients with a minimum net worth of $1 billion. But here's what made everyone suspicious. Epstein would never reveal who his clients were. Financial regulators couldn't track his transactions. Journalists couldn't verify his claims. Even people in the finance industry were confused. Where was his money coming from? One of his few confirmed clients was Leslie Wexner, the billionaire founder of Victoria's Secret and the limited retail empire. Wexner gave Epstein extraordinary power over his finances, even signing over power of attorney. This meant Epstein could make financial decisions on Wexner's behalf without asking permission. In 1996, Wexner transferred his New York mansion, one of the largest private homes in Manhattan, to Epstein. This $77 million property would later become the scene of terrible crimes. But Wexner wasn't the only powerful connection. Epstein cultivated relationships with Donald Trump, who were neighbors in Palm Beach and socialized in the 1990s and early 2000s. Bill Clinton,
who would later fly on Epstein's private jet multiple times, Prince Andrew, who became one of Epstein's closest friends, and prominent scientists from MIT, Harvard, and other elite universities. Epstein donated millions to scientific research. He hosted conferences with Nobel Prize winners. He presented himself as a philanthropist and intellectual. But behind this carefully crafted image was something far darker. In 1998, Epstein purchased a private island in the United States Virgin Islands called Little St. James for $7.95 million. The island was 72 acres of tropical paradise, white sand beaches, crystal blue water, and complete privacy. Epstein transformed it into a compound worthy of a billionaire, a massive main villa with colonnade-style architecture, multiple guest houses, a stone cabana that served as his personal residence, a large swimming pool that was under construction at the time of his arrest, a private dock for yachts, and a helipad for his helicopter. But the most mysterious structure was a blue and white striped building that sat on the highest point of the island. It had a golden dome, strange owl-like statues, and an imposing presence. Locals called it the Temple. Some said it was a music pavilion. Epstein claimed to love classical music. Some said it was a gym. But victims who visited the island said something very different. It was a place where terrible things happened. The building had a door that locked from the outside, meaning people could be trapped inside. Investigators later found that the structure may have contained hidden rooms or even underground spaces. The locals on neighboring islands knew something was wrong. They saw young girls arriving by helicopter and boat. They saw Epstein's staff constantly coming and going. They whispered about what was happening on the island, but no one with power seemed to care.
Virginia Giuffre would later describe the island as a prison. Girls had their passports confiscated. They couldn't leave. They were completely under Epstein's control. But Epstein didn't operate alone. He had a partner, a co-conspirator, a woman who made everything possible, Ghislaine Maxwell. Ghislaine was born on December 25, 1961, in France. She was the daughter of Robert Maxwell, a British media tycoon who owned newspapers, publishing companies, and had mysterious connections to intelligence agencies. When Robert Maxwell died in 1991, falling from his yacht under suspicious circumstances, Ghislaine's world collapsed. Her father's empire was revealed to be built on fraud. His pension funds had been looted. The Maxwell name was destroyed. Ghislaine fled to New York, where she met Jeffrey Epstein. They became partners in one of the most horrific criminal enterprises in modern history. Maxwell was perfect for Epstein's scheme. She was sophisticated and well-educated, an Oxford University graduate. She was socially connected, friends with royalty, celebrities, and politicians. She was trustworthy in appearance. A woman recruiting girls seemed less threatening than a man. And she was ruthless, willing to do whatever it took to maintain her lifestyle. Victims described Maxwell's recruitment tactics. She approached young girls at shopping malls, beaches, schools, and even Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort. She promised modeling careers, educational opportunities, and travel. She talked about massage therapy training and legitimate work. She seemed kind, motherly, and safe, but it was all a trap. Maxwell would bring these girls to Epstein. She would normalize the terrible things that happened. She would participate in the crimes herself. And she would ensure the girls brought their friends, creating a never-ending supply of victims. Together, Epstein and Maxwell built a machine, a system designed to exploit vulnerable young women for decades. In March 2005, a worried stepmother in Palm Beach, Florida, picked up the phone and called the police. Her 14-year-old stepdaughter had just returned from a wealthy man's mansion. The girl was shaken, disturbed, and wouldn't stop crying. A young girl told her stepmother about a disturbing experience. A friend from school had offered her a large amount of money for what was described as a simple meeting with a wealthy man named Jeffrey Epstein. When she arrived at his waterfront property in Palm Beach, she was taken into a private area of the house. Very quickly, the situation changed. Boundaries were crossed, and the experience left her deeply shaken. That phone call would change everything. Detective Joe Riccari of the Palm Beach Police Department was assigned to investigate the complaint. What initially appeared to be a single incident soon revealed something far more serious. Detective Riccari spoke with the young girl. Then he interviewed the friend who had introduced her to the situation. Then another, and then another. A clear pattern began to emerge. Each time, a teenager was approached by someone she trusted and offered several $100s for what was described as a harmless appointment. She would be taken to Epstein's residence in Palm Beach, and once inside, the situation would turn inappropriate and unlawful. Afterward, money was exchanged, and the individual was encouraged to bring others. Investigators later described it as a recruitment system, one that relied on manipulation rather than force, drawing more and more vulnerable young people into the same situation. Over the next 11 months, Palm Beach police spoke with more than 40 individuals. Many were teenagers from difficult backgrounds. Some came from unstable homes. Others were struggling socially or academically. Investigators concluded that vulnerability was deliberately targeted. Eventually, police obtained a search warrant for Epstein's residence. Inside, they discovered material that raised serious concerns, including records, contact information, and evidence suggesting repeated inappropriate encounters. As the investigation expanded, federal authorities became involved. Prosecutors believed the evidence supported serious federal charges, including unlawful transportation and exploitation of minors across state lines. By early 2007, the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of Florida prepared a detailed federal indictment. The charges included conspiracy and multiple counts related to the exploitation of minors. If convicted, Epstein faced the possibility of life in prison. In response, Epstein assembled a powerful legal defense team, including some of the most well-known attorneys in the United States, figures with experience at the highest levels of law and government. These lawyers did something extraordinary. They bypassed the normal legal process and went directly to the top prosecutor, Alexander Acosta, the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Florida. And then, something unthinkable happened. On September 24, 2007, Acosta's office signed a secret deal with Epstein's lawyers called a non-prosecution agreement. The terms were shocking. Epstein would get federal charges dropped completely. He would plead guilty to only 2 minor state charges. He would serve 18 months in county jail, not federal prison. He would be allowed to leave jail for 12 hours every day, 6 days a week, for work release. After release, he would register as an offender but face no other federal punishment. The co-conspirators got complete immunity from federal prosecution for anyone who helped Epstein. This meant Ghislaine Maxwell, his assistants, and anyone else involved would be protected. Their names would remain secret. The victims got nothing. They were never told about the deal. They had no chance to object in court. Their voices were completely silenced. This violated federal law. The Crime Victims' Rights Act requires prosecutors to inform victims of any plea deals and allow them to be heard in court. But Acosta's office deliberately hid the agreement from the victims until after it was signed. Why? That question haunts us to this day. In 2019, when Acosta was serving as President Trump's labor secretary, journalists confronted him about the deal. Acosta said he was told to back off because Epstein belonged to intelligence. He later claimed he was instructed that Epstein was above his pay grade. What did that mean? Was Epstein connected to the CIA, FBI, or foreign intelligence agencies? Was he gathering blackmail material on powerful people? We still don't know. On June 30th, 2008, Jeffrey Epstein was sentenced under the state plea deal. He served his time at the Palm Beach County Stockade, a low-security facility. But calling it jail time is generous. He had his own private wing of the jail. He was allowed to leave for 12 hours every day, 6 days a week for work release. He went to his office in West Palm Beach where he continued his business. He had private meetings, made phone calls, and lived almost normally. He slept in jail only at night. Victims described seeing Epstein driving around West Palm Beach in his chauffeur-driven car during his jail sentence. After 13 months, on July 22, 2009, Epstein was released. He registered as an offender in Florida, New York, and the U.S. Virgin Islands, but otherwise faced no restrictions. He returned to his mansions. He returned to his private island. He returned to his life of wealth and power. Justice had failed. For nearly a decade, Epstein lived freely. He socialized with presidents, princes, and billionaires. He donated to universities and charities. He acted as if nothing had happened. But one journalist refused to forget. Julie K. Brown, an investigative reporter for the Miami Herald, spent over 18 months tracking down Epstein's victims. Many were scared to talk. Some had signed non-disclosure agreements. Others had been threatened by Epstein's lawyers. But Brown persisted. In November 2018, the Miami Herald published Brown's groundbreaking series, Perversion of Justice. The 3-part investigation revealed the details of Acosta's secret plea deal, how over 80 victims were never informed, how Epstein continued his criminal activity even after his conviction, and how the justice system protected a billionaire predator. The impact was immediate and explosive. Public outrage swept the nation. Victims came forward with new allegations. Federal prosecutors in New York reopened the case. Alexander Acosta was forced to resign as labor secretary in July 2019. Brown's reporting changed everything. She gave victims a voice, she exposed corruption, and she reignited the fight for justice. On a Saturday evening, July 6, 2019, Jeffrey Epstein's private Gulfstream jet landed at Teterboro Airport in New Jersey. He was returning from Paris, France. As he stepped off the plane, FBI agents and NYPD officers surrounded him. He was arrested on federal charges of trafficking minors in New York and Florida. This time, there would be no deal. Prosecutors in the Southern District of New York had jurisdiction, not Florida. The U.S. Attorney, Jeffrey Berman, made it clear Epstein would face the full force of the law. The indictment alleged that between 2002 and 2005, Epstein exploited and harmed dozens of minor girls at his mansions in New York and Florida. He paid victims hundreds of dollars in cash for so-called massages. He created a vast network of underage victims through a pyramid scheme. Some victims were as young as 14 years old. If convicted, Epstein faced up to 45 years in federal prison. Given his age of 66, this was essentially a life sentence. Victims around the world celebrated. Finally, justice seemed possible. Epstein was held at the Metropolitan Correctional Center in Manhattan, one of the most secure federal jails in America. It had held terrorists, cartel leaders, and organized crime bosses. Escape was impossible. Self-harm was supposed to be prevented. But on August 10, 2019, at approximately 6:30 a.m., guards found Jeffrey Epstein unresponsive in his cell. CPR was attempted. He was rushed to a hospital. At 7:36 a.m., Jeffrey Epstein was pronounced dead. The official cause, death by apparent self-harm. But almost immediately, questions exploded. Epstein had been placed on special watch after an incident on July 23rd, but was taken off it just 6 days later. His cellmate had been transferred to a different facility the day before, leaving Epstein alone, which violated prison policy. 2 guards were supposed to check on him every 30 minutes, but they falsified their logs and didn't check for nearly 8 hours.
Security cameras outside Epstein's cell malfunctioned. No footage of that night exists. The two guards who were on duty fell asleep and browsed the internet instead of doing their rounds. A 2023 Department of Justice Inspector General report revealed the staggering failures at the Metropolitan Correctional Center. Chronic understaffing, guards working extreme overtime shifts, some working 24 hours straight, broken security cameras that hadn't been fixed for days, a culture of neglect and rule-breaking. The circumstances fueled conspiracy theories worldwide. Some believe Epstein was harmed by others to protect powerful people. Others believe he took his own life to avoid a public trial. The truth may never be known. But one thing is certain. With Epstein gone, many secrets went with him. Victims like Courtney Wild spoke with heartbreak and anger. He took the coward's way out. We will never get the answers we deserve, but we will not stop fighting. When people talk about the Epstein Files, they're not referring to one single document. Instead, it's a collection of different sources that have been released over several years. Let me explain each one. In 2015, Virginia Giuffre sued Ghislaine Maxwell for defamation. Maxwell had publicly called Virginia a liar when she claimed to have been trafficked by Epstein and Maxwell. The lawsuit was eventually settled in 2017, but the court case generated thousands of pages of documents. Depositions, which is sworn testimony under oath, witness statements, emails and text messages, flight logs, photographs. For years, most of these documents were sealed, kept secret from the public to protect the privacy of victims and unnamed individuals. But victims' advocates and media organizations, including the Miami Herald, fought in court to have them released. They argued that the public had a right to know the truth. On December 18, 2023, Judge Loretta Preska of the U.S. District Court of the Southern District of New York ordered the release of nearly all the sealed documents. On January 3, 2024, the first batch of documents was unsealed, over 900 pages mentioning more than 150 people. Names that appeared in these documents included former President Bill Clinton, mentioned 73 times, former President Donald Trump, mentioned multiple times, Prince Andrew, mentioned 69 times with serious allegations, Alan Dershowitz, Epstein's lawyer, accused by Virginia Giuffre, David Copperfield, the famous magician, Jean-Luc Brunel, a French modeling agent who was later found deceased in French prison in 2022, Les Wexner, the Victoria's Secret billionaire, Marvin Minsky, an MIT scientist, Glenn Dubin, a hedge fund manager, and Bill Richardson, former governor of New Mexico. It's important to understand, being named in these documents does not mean someone committed a crime. Many people were mentioned as potential witnesses, people who flew on Epstein's plane for legitimate reasons, people who attended social events with Epstein, or associates who may have seen suspicious activity. However, some individuals were directly accused of serious wrongdoing by victims under oath. The FBI maintains a public database called The Vault, where they release documents under the Freedom of Information Act. The FBI has released 8 parts of Jeffrey Epstein investigation files, totaling hundreds of pages. These include reports from the 2006 Palm Beach police investigation, FBI witness interviews, financial records, and correspondence between agencies. These documents show the FBI was aware of Epstein's crimes as early as 2006, yet federal prosecution was delayed for years. In 2009, Epstein's former house manager, Alfredo Rodriguez, attempted to sell Epstein's personal phone directory to lawyers. Rodriguez believed the book contained evidence of Epstein's crimes. The directory was eventually leaked and published online in 2015 and later by other outlets. The Little Black Book contains over 1,000 names, including politicians, royalty, business leaders, Hollywood celebrities, models, and scientists. Being in this book does not prove criminal activity. It was Epstein's contact list. Many people may have had legitimate professional or social connections with him, but it reveals the shocking breadth of his network. Epstein's longtime pilot, David Rogers, kept detailed flight logs from Epstein's private jets. These logs were obtained during legal proceedings and released to the public. They showed dates and destinations of flights, passenger names, and connections between Epstein and powerful people. Frequent passengers included Bill Clinton on multiple flights, Prince Andrew, Kevin Spacey, and Chris Tucker, who traveled to Africa with Clinton on a humanitarian trip, and numerous models and young women. These logs are critical evidence showing who was where and when. In September 2025, the U.S. House Oversight Committee obtained over 33,000 pages of Epstein-related documents from the Department of Justice. In December 2025, a second batch of documents was released, including new photographs from inside Epstein's properties that had never been seen before. These photos revealed the interior of the Little St. James Mansion, a room with strange theatrical masks hanging on the wall, possibly used as disguises, a chalkboard with cryptic messages, some words like power and deception visible, others redacted by the government, an old-fashioned phone in Epstein's office with shortcut buttons to unnamed contacts, the bathroom with a large tub and a chair positioned nearby, and rooms with massage tables and unusual equipment. These images confirmed many of the details victims had described and raised new, disturbing questions. In February 2024, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis signed legislation authorizing the release of grand jury records from the 2006 Palm Beach County investigation into Epstein. These records had been sealed for 18 years. On July 1, 2024, they were finally made public. They revealed that the state attorney's office had recommended only minimal charges against Epstein, despite evidence of dozens of victims. Police had provided evidence involving girls as young as 13. State prosecutors downplayed the severity of the crimes. The system failed at the state level long before the federal plea deal. 2 Epstein victims attended the bill-signing ceremony. One said, "The public deserves to know who participated in Jeffrey Epstein's crimes. For too long, powerful people have hidden behind secrecy." After the January 2024 document release, social media exploded with claims about an Epstein client list, a supposed document naming everyone who harmed minors through Epstein's network. But here's the truth: no such list exists. On July 7, 2025, the FBI issued an official statement. After a comprehensive review of all materials, the FBI has found no evidence that Jeffrey Epstein maintained a so-called client list. This claim is a mischaracterization of the documents that have been released. What does exist are flight logs showing who flew on his planes, contact directories showing who he knew, and victim testimony naming specific individuals. But there is no master list of criminals that is being hidden from the public. This distinction is important. Many innocent people have been falsely accused online because of this myth. This story is not really about Jeffrey Epstein. It's about the survivors, the women who endured unimaginable trauma and found the courage to speak the truth. Let me tell you their stories. Virginia was born on August 9, 1983. She grew up in California but moved to Florida with her family as a teenager. Her childhood was difficult. She suffered hardship at home and ran away multiple times. In the summer of 1999, when Virginia was just 16 years old, she was working as a locker room attendant at Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort in Palm Beach. One day, Ghislaine Maxwell approached her. Virginia was reading a book about massage therapy, hoping to train for a new career. Maxwell saw an opportunity. She told Virginia she knew someone who was looking for a traveling masseuse. The pay would be good. She could get professional training. She would see the world. It sounded like a dream. Within hours, Maxwell brought Virginia to Epstein's mansion. What happened next would change Virginia's life forever. According to sworn court records, a young woman later identified as Virginia described how she became involved with Jeffrey Epstein's inner circle at a very young age. She said she was taken into a private area of his residence where she was instructed to participate in behavior that was inappropriate and unlawful.
From the very beginning, multiple individuals were involved in her exploitation. She was given money and told that this arrangement would continue regularly. Virginia soon found herself unable to leave. Over the following years, court documents state that she was moved frequently between different properties connected to Epstein and his associates. These locations included residences in the United States, private islands, and international destinations in Europe. She later testified that she was placed into situations involving influential individuals and that she suffered repeated abuse as part of a broader criminal operation. Among the names mentioned in legal filings was Prince Andrew, whom she accused of wrongdoing on multiple occasions in different locations. Virginia attempted to escape more than once. However, according to her testimony, she had limited freedom, no access to her travel documents, and no financial independence. She said she was closely monitored and controlled. In 2002, she was finally able to leave the situation. She relocated overseas, started a family, and made efforts to rebuild her life. Despite this, the psychological impact of what she experienced remained with her. Years later, in 2015, Virginia filed a civil lawsuit against Ghislaine Maxwell after Maxwell publicly denied her allegations. That legal action resulted in thousands of pages of records, which were later released to the public in 2024. In 2021, Virginia also brought a separate civil case against Prince Andrew in a federal court in New York, repeating her allegations. Prince Andrew addressed the claims during a televised interview in 2019, where he denied the accusations and made statements that were widely questioned by the public. In February 2022, the lawsuit was resolved through a financial settlement. No admission of wrongdoing was made, but the outcome drew significant public attention. Today, Virginia speaks publicly in support of survivors of exploitation. She has written a memoir and continues to advocate for accountability and awareness. Another individual, Courtney Wild, later became a key voice in the investigation. According to public records, she first encountered Jeffrey Epstein as a teenager in Palm Beach, Florida. Courtney grew up in a financially struggling community, but was known as a strong student and active in school activities. When she was offered money for what was presented as a legitimate opportunity, she believed it could help support her family. Court records state that once inside Epstein's residence, the situation became inappropriate. She later reported being harmed and pressured to involve others. Courtney remained connected to Epstein's operation for an extended period. Investigators later learned that many other young people were drawn in through similar methods, creating a cycle of manipulation that expanded over time.
She said, "I carry so much guilt. I didn't know what I was bringing them into. I thought I was helping them make money, but I was bringing my friends into harm." Courtney became one of the most vocal advocates for victims' rights. She fought against the 2008 plea deal, arguing it violated the Crime Victims' Rights Act. Her case went all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court, which declined to hear it in 2021. But Courtney didn't give up. She testified before Congress, she spoke to the media, she demanded accountability. Today, she continues her fight for justice. Maria Farmer was the first person to report Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell to law enforcement back in 1996. Maria was a talented art student at the New York Academy of Art. In 1995, she met Epstein, who presented himself as an art collector and patron. Epstein hired Maria to help purchase art for his Manhattan mansion. She was grateful for the work. But in the summer of 1996, Maria and her younger sister, Annie Farmer, then 16, were both victimized by Epstein and Maxwell, Maria in New York and Annie at Epstein's ranch in New Mexico. Maria immediately reported what happened to the FBI and NYPD, but nothing happened. Her complaint was ignored. The investigation went nowhere. Epstein continued his crimes for over 20 more years. Maria told journalist Vicky Ward in 2002 about the incidents, but Vanity Fair magazine removed her allegations from the published story under pressure from Epstein. For decades, Maria lived with the knowledge that she tried to stop Epstein and the system failed her. She told reporters, "If they had listened to me in 1996, dozens, maybe hundreds of girls could have been saved. That's what hurts the most." After Epstein passed away, his estate was valued at approximately $577 million. In 2020, the estate created the Epstein Victims Fund, managed by Kenneth Feinberg, a lawyer known for overseeing compensation funds for tragedies. The fund operated from June 2020 to August 2021. It paid out $121 million to over 135 survivors. To participate, victims had to provide evidence, agree not to sue the estate, and waive their right to future litigation.
Reactions were mixed. Some survivors felt it provided closure and financial support. Others felt it was silencing them and protecting Epstein's co-conspirators from lawsuits. Many noted that the wealthiest and most powerful people connected to Epstein were never held accountable. After Epstein's arrest in July 2019, Ghislaine Maxwell went into hiding. For nearly a year, she evaded authorities. On July 2, 2020, FBI agents tracked her to a luxury estate in Bradford, New Hampshire, where she had been living under a false name. She was arrested and charged with serious federal crimes related to trafficking minors and conspiracy. Her trial began in November 2021 in Manhattan Federal Court. 4 victims testified against her. The testimony was heartbreaking and powerful. Victims described how Maxwell recruited them as teenagers, normalized criminal conduct, participated in crimes herself, and threatened them to stay silent. On December 29, 2021, after 5 days of deliberation, the jury found Maxwell guilty on 5 of 6 counts. On June 28, 2022, Judge Allison Nathan sentenced Maxwell to 20 years in federal prison plus a $750,000 fine. Maxwell, now 62 years old, is currently incarcerated at a low-security federal prison in Florida. Her projected release date is July 17, 2037, when she will be 75 years old. She has filed an appeal, which is ongoing. She continues to claim her innocence. Survivors disagree. Jeffrey Epstein didn't operate in isolation. Major financial institutions helped him move money, even after his 2008 conviction. J.P. Morgan Chase was Epstein's bank from 1998 to 2013. The bank processed millions of dollars in suspicious transactions. Internal emails showed employees knew about Epstein's conviction and reputation. In June 2023, J.P. Morgan Chase agreed to pay $290 million to settle claims brought by Epstein's victims. Deutsche Bank became Epstein's bank in 2013 after J.P. Morgan ended the relationship. The bank continued working with him until 2018. In 2020, regulators fined Deutsche Bank $150 million for compliance failures. In May 2023, Deutsche Bank settled with Epstein victims for $75 million. These settlements send a message: institutions that enable harm will be held accountable. Even with thousands of pages released, many questions remain unanswered. The blue and white building on Little St. James Island remains one of the biggest mysteries. Theories include that it was used for criminal activity, contained surveillance equipment, had underground tunnels or rooms, or served other purposes. The building was damaged during Hurricane Maria in 2017. After Epstein passed away, it was reportedly painted to blend in. The interior remains undocumented by official investigators. Multiple victims have claimed Epstein secretly recorded encounters with powerful men. Victims mentioned seeing cameras in bedrooms and bathrooms. Maria Farmer said Maxwell told her they have everyone on videotape. FBI agents found computer equipment during raids but never disclosed what was on them. If these recordings exist, where are they now? Who has them, and why haven't they been released? This is one of the most persistent theories. Evidence includes that former U.S. Attorney Alexander Acosta claimed he was told Epstein belonged to intelligence, Epstein's mysterious wealth and lack of visible legitimate business, his connections to powerful figures in multiple countries, and Ghislaine Maxwell's father had documented ties to intelligence agencies. Some theorists believe Epstein was running a blackmail operation, recording powerful people to gain leverage. However, no concrete evidence has ever been presented to prove this theory. While Ghislaine Maxwell is in prison, victims and investigators believe others helped Epstein for decades. Several of Epstein's assistants were named in lawsuits but never charged. Why haven't these individuals faced criminal charges? Some believe the 2008 agreement granted them immunity. Legal experts argue that agreement was unlawful and should be voided. Despite the official ruling, questions persist. Why did cameras malfunction? Why were guards not doing their jobs? Why was his cellmate transferred? Why was special monitoring ended? We may never know the full truth.
Jeffrey Epstein should have been in prison for life after the 2006 investigation. The evidence was overwhelming, but money bought him freedom. This teaches us the law must apply equally to everyone, rich or poor, powerful or powerless. For decades, Epstein's victims tried to speak out. Maria Farmer reported in 1996, ignored. Palm Beach victims came forward in 2005, silenced. Virginia Giuffre went public in 2015, doubted. But they were telling the truth the entire time. We must create a culture where survivors are believed, supported, and protected. Julie K. Brown's reporting changed everything. Her investigation found victims, exposed corruption, forced authorities to reopen the case, and led to Epstein's arrest. This reminds us, support real journalism. Truth-tellers are essential. It wasn't just Epstein. It was prosecutors who made a corrupt deal, guards who failed their duties, banks that processed suspicious transactions, and powerful people who ignored warning signs. Justice means holding everyone accountable. Virginia Giuffre, Courtney Wild, Maria Farmer, Annie Farmer, and over 100 other women refused to give up. They fought for years through public scrutiny, legal battles, threats, and trauma. They are the real heroes of this story. As of 2026, the fight continues. Thousands of pages remain sealed. Many individuals named by victims have never faced investigation. Epstein's co-conspirators, besides Maxwell, have not been charged, and the full truth remains hidden. Survivors continue to demand full release of documents, investigation of everyone involved, changes to laws protecting victims, and accountability for enablers. Jeffrey Epstein is gone, but his story is not over. His crimes remind us that wrongdoing can hide in plain sight, protected by money, power, and silence. But his story also reminds us of hope. Courageous survivors can change the world. When brave people speak the truth, when journalists investigate, when citizens demand accountability, justice becomes possible. The Epstein Files are not just documents, they are evidence of crimes. They are voices of survivors. They are a warning to the powerful. No one is above the law. My friends, if this story has moved you, inspired you, or opened your eyes, I need you to do 3 things. First, leave a comment below. Tell me, what shocked you most about the Epstein Files? Which survivor's story touched your heart? What do you think about the mysteries that remain? Second, share this video with your friends and family. This story needs to be told. Survivors need to be heard. The truth must not be forgotten. Third, subscribe to my channel and turn on the notification bell. Every week, I bring you powerful, true stories that improve your English while expanding your mind. Remember, you're not just learning English, you're learning the truth about our world. Thank you for watching. Stay curious, stay courageous, and never stop fighting for justice. I'll see you in the next story.